All right. Welcome back to another Elevated Marketing Dad podcast where we talk about complicated digital marketing topics to help your business grow. So, while I don't think today's topic is that complicated, we're going to talk about basically the promotion of your content and unique ways to kind of get your content out. You might be kind of stuck in one way or another, and maybe you're not really meeting your audience where it's at. And so that's what I want to talk about. But say hello, Brenna.
Hello.
Per usual, we love talking about marketing. But today I want to know, you have to be honest, if you tuck your feet under the blanket at night, do you think a monster will get them?
I used to. But now I just have to worry about my cats. So
I just can't sleep without being like tucked underneath my blanket.
mm-hmm.
I'm a separate blanket from my husband person. Like, we have to have our own blankets. There needs to be like a pile of pillows in between us. I am not a snuggler, and I don't want my feet cold.
Yeah. I'm pretty particular about that kind of stuff too.
It will be tucked underneath, and I will be wearing socks.
People who don't wear socks are
yeah, not good. Okay, so let's talk about like some unique strategies, like for content distribution or getting your content seen. And I think as a marketer, I can't start this topic without first talking about understanding where your audience might hang out, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to think about posting on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram may not be good for you. Maybe it's better on LinkedIn. That similar situation.
Yeah. Well, and I think there are definitely some very niche places that, your audience might be hanging out. But I also think there's some widespread like places that a lot of people hang out, like Facebook. It has the numbers, and so you feel like you have to be there. But there's some, you got to do that research when you're talking about like where to put your content at. You have to know these niche places, otherwise it might not get seen by the actual audience. Because when you're like, let's just say posting on Facebook, sure, that if you're consistently posting the same content, then it should be with the algorithms attracting that audience, but you don't really know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially with how that algorithm is working these days too. Yeah.
But there are some niche places where you can make sure that it does get there.
Yeah.
And then I think the other aspect of content distribution is sometimes, well, for sure, you're going to have to create content in different formats in order to fit the specific channel that you need to be in.
Yeah. And I also think about too the frequency in which you're distributing this content and each piece of content. A lot of times just promoting it once is not going to do the trick per se.
No.
So
That's where like we believe in starting with some sort of longer form of content, whether that be a video or a podcast or a written form that's pretty long, that then you can break that up into smaller chunks and then distribute it in different places in different ways, So it's not like quantity. When you're thinking about like content distribution, it's like quality of maybe a longer piece.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a list. We probably won't go through all of this today. Of course, you'll have to go over to the blog post to get the full list. But I want to bring up a couple, and I'm sure Brenna has a couple on our list as well. My latest new one is LinkedIn articles. I had someone recently, potentially be like, oh, well, that's kind of old news. And it's like, well, maybe not. We're potentially trying to talk to marketers who need help, or we're trying to talk to business owners, and they do hang out on LinkedIn. And the metrics that we're seeing is that our LinkedIn articles are getting more views and more eyeballs than it would have in SEO. So it's become a great place for us.
Absolutely. And to kind of go along with that one too is LinkedIn newsletters. And, similar to an article, you're pushing it out to the same audience. These newsletters, your audience can subscribe to it to get notifications when there's a new one posted.
Yeah.
But just another way to get more of your content out. Maybe this is more of a summarized version of a few pieces of content that you've put out in that month.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Another place is maybe like Reddit or Quora. And I think this is a real great place that you could really get niche and really get to your specific audience that you're trying to get to, and be of an influence on those particular topics. So I think this is a great place, an example of somewhere where there are these little niche communities that are absolutely available.
Yeah,
you just got to do it the right way and not be spammy.
Yeah. I do like that one. It wouldn't be an episode about content if I didn't bring up email newsletters.
Of course you wouldn't, Brenna.
This isn't old news. We know email newsletters are a great way to promote some of the content you've recently produced, but you can also use it as a form to produce some older pieces of content that's maybe doing really well, and you just want to give another boost.
After all, the email is a curated audience that you have created, and they are either people before they have purchased or people who have already purchased and so it's an audience that really wants to hear what you have to say. So putting your content in front of that audience is a no-brainer. I think really the trouble kind of comes to, well, how do I create that list, or that, but you got to get started. That's where you got to go. So
absolutely.
Of course, podcasts. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now. We just did a show on why to turn your podcast into a video podcast. We're just rehashing things, but you've got to have a good topic and meaning that your audience that you are trying to get to would want to listen to, and you need to be able to be good at doing podcasting. Now, you might start off and not be the greatest, but I think that's a great place to really get your content out.
Yeah. And, as with anything, we all have to start somewhere, right? So
there you go. What's another one you think of?
Yeah. More recently, we've been dabbling with some infographics, and that's a great way to explain and distribute your content in a completely different format than what a lot of us are used to seeing.
Yeah.
And you can use it on a lot of different platforms. Think social media, think email marketing, maybe even create it as a download on your website to start building your email list.
I was gonna say it's an oldie
Mhm.
but goodie,
Yeah.
and it really like takes maybe complex subjects and breaks it down visually into something that's more like digestible. Um, and then it's more eye catching when you use it on some of the other platforms that you're talking about. So that's a great idea as well.
Yeah.
I think collaborative content creation is a great way to get your content seen more often, especially if you can work with somebody that has similar audiences that you're both trying to attract, and you can combine the power of both of your own like communities. And like that's great. I think that's a great place to go.
Yeah, definitely. This one is maybe a little bit more for, say, local businesses, but I think it gets looked past a lot, and
Yeah.
that's Google My Business posts.
Yeah.
If you're producing written content on your website, such as blog posts, you can have that automatically feed into your Google My Business profile. And just another way for people to interact and engage with your profile on Google, getting that content out there definitely provides some.
Especially if Google is, showing local results,
Mhm.
then, you really got to take advantage of that and have more options to show.
Yeah.
So, that's a great place.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to give a couple more, and then, you're going to have to go to the blog post and you're going to have to see the rest of it. So like Discord, there are all of these like communities that are like highly engaged in hanging out on Discord. And I've never been a real big Discord user, but I've started to get over there and I'm like, wow, okay, well, there are lots of different communities over there. Now, these ones that I'm mentioning, like Reddit and places like this, you can't just go on there and just like go post a link. Like you got to be part of these communities and be involved in order to get your content out there. They're not just going to go back to your website unless you've kind of shown some authority, and you're going to show some authority when you really know your subject.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Discord, there's a lot that can be done in Discord and a lot to be talked about for sure.
Yeah. I got one more I have to mention, but do you have any more you want to mention?
You go for it. You got it.
I have to mention running ads.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people think about using ads in order to get that content out there. A lot of times people think of ads of, oh, I want to run a promotion, or I want to drive this sale, or I want to drive. And I think that's a good, not a bad way to think about running ads, but like running ads for the content that you're producing, you can actually target and get in front of your audience is a great way, especially if you have this like longer sales cycle where you need to make sure that people know that you understand what you're talking about. Like running ads is a great way to get that content out there.
Yeah.
But I think we have to like kind of wrap up with, when we talk about content distribution, there's some things you need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's your thoughts on like what you really need to keep in mind when it comes to content distribution?
I think obviously knowing where your audience is hanging out is, I know we had briefly mentioned that.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of these platforms that we had mentioned is going to be the right fit for everyone. And
Yeah.
so, you've done your homework, hopefully, on your
Yeah.
audience. So do your homework on where they're hanging out.
And do your homework on what they're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like there's all these steps before you get to content distribution that will actually lead you in the direction of what content channels you should use. But you got to think outside the box and get away from some things that you maybe have been doing for a while that are just not getting your content seen like it used to. Like, you'll notice we didn't really mention blogs today and SEO today, because it's becoming harder and harder just to write a blog and have it picked up by the search engines. And so that wasn't and isn't on our list. Should you write the blog to start the content? Yes. But what you need to do is create other pieces of content from that to fit like other channels of where your audience is hanging out. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've gone back to it so many times. It's just being different than your competitors. We live in a world where there's all these trending things and everyone's jumping on a trend. How are you going to stand out from those trends or what we've been doing for years?
Yeah, if it's already to the masses, it's probably too late. You need to jump onto something else. Find something else that's different. All right. Well, that is it for today's topic. If you enjoyed today's show, certainly hit that subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Or if you are listening on the audio version, certainly, go ahead and subscribe to that as well and leave us a review. And hey, you might even be listening on LinkedIn now because we've been putting these on LinkedIn. So put your comments in there. Happy to have a conversation with what we have talked about today. All right, that's it. Take care.